Welcome to World Travel Made Easy with Itinerary Boss, the podcast where we dive deep into insider tips, travel hacks, and the best ways to explore the world smarter. I'm your host, Ross. Whether you're a seasoned traveler or just starting your next getaway, you're in the right place. Before we dive into today's episode, I've got something special for you. Head over to itineraryboss.com to grab your free resource to get you started traveling smarter and quicker. And it's all yours to help you make your next trip unforgettable. Don't also forget to follow and subscribe wherever you get your podcast on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube so you never miss an episode. We've got new travel tips, interviews, and destination inspiration coming your way every Wednesday. And if you enjoy the show, don't forget to share it with a friend and give us a rating and review to help more people travel. Also, make sure to subscribe to the Itinerary Insider at itineraryboss.com, where you'll get all the latest episode releases, blog posts, as well as exclusive credit card sign-up bonuses, my travel must-haves, and travel hacks delivered straight to your inbox. Let's get you traveling smarter. And now, on to the show. Welcome back to another episode of World Travel Made Easy with Itinerary Boss. I'm your host, Ross, and for this week's episode, I'm excited to bring on Samantha Green, who's an experienced travel agent, and she is really going to focus on a hot topic right now in the world of travel around responsible tourism and travel. And would like to invite her on and welcome her. Hey, Samantha, how are you doing today?
Hi, Ross. Yeah, really good. Thanks. I'm really excited to be here and talk about something that I'm quite passionate about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know when we were talking when we first got introduced, you were telling me more and more about it. And I always love learning new, different things just around the world, different perspectives, and responsible travel is one of those that you really dove deep into. And I learned something. So don't want to sell you short. If you just want to give a little bit background about yourself and then we can just dive into our conversation.
Yeah, well, I kind of decided I wanted to travel from quite a young age. There's a few songs that were on the radio when I was younger, talking about foreign places, and I always thought I would never get a chance to go. And so it was I actually use one of them as my ringtone. It's called Barbados, and I always thought how lucky people were to go to these exotic places. And then I think as you grow up, then you realize actually the world's a lot smaller than you think, and travel nowadays is so accessible. So I really started traveling when I was by myself when I was younger, going to mostly Europe because it's easy to get to from we're obviously when I say Europe, France, Spain, Italy, places like that. And yeah, but all my friends wanted to do, or all that kind of, most people wanted to do is just sit on a beach. Now, I'm not saying that's boring, but it's not for me. It's not the sort of thing. First of all, my mum's ginger, so I've got her skin. So I can't sit there without looking like a lobster, after 10 minutes, I just burn. So, it's pointless me sitting there anyway. But that was quite a good thing, I think, because it really got me out and about and started to not just go somewhere, but go and explore and really find out a lot about the places. And I've never really been a history buff until the last few years of really getting into history because it's not history you learn at school. That's just textbook rubbish. It's proper history. And one of the most amazing experiences I had a few years ago was to go to Cambodia and learn a lot about what happened with Pol Pot and the Khmer Rouge. And when you think about it, it's not that long ago that it all happened. I think it's easy for us to think all these horrible things were happening in the kind of 20s, 30s, 40s, but it was 1975 or 76, and we were actually speaking to people that were there, that people that were involved, people that have whose family members were involved, and it's so interesting, and it just brings the place to life. And I think that's what I mean by kind of experiential travel, but also how we can take responsibility and go and find out about their culture, find out about their history, wherever you go. And I think it just opens your eyes a lot. It really
Yeah,
does.
yeah, no, absolutely. And that's funny when you say I sat on the beach and then realized that my mom was ginger and then, the sun wasn't going to be, you were going to be just 0 for 100 against the sun. There was no chance. I'm the same way. So I'm always, I like to be out in the sun, but figuring out, right, what can we do where maybe we're not laying on the beach the whole time, but it also adds in fun where you get to go see things. It's always nice. And I think after you travel for years, you don't want to jam pack everything down to the minute in your itinerary. You do want some of that relaxation time, but in order to indulge in the local cuisine, see different hidden gems, learn about the culture, connect with the locals, you have to go explore the city and not solely do all the tourist things and
Yeah.
focus in on just learning. I mean, you just mentioned things that you've learned, and I've learned a ton just over the years of travel where I could have looked it up on the internet, but that thought would have been in my head for 5 minutes and then it wouldn't have really stuck with me. So I think the nice thing is going to all these different places is those experiences and memories start to compound and then you become more curious to say, wow, okay, that was pretty cool. People are talking about this. I want to go learn this. And I like the analogy you said about it's not the textbook rubbish that you learn in school when you're younger, because everyone learned that, but you're just checking the box. I think now it's like whatever is important to you, whatever you find interesting, like go seek that out and do that. And that's right when you're starting to plan a trip. That's one thing I tell my potential customers is sit down and mark out like what do you like about vacation? What don't you like?
Mm.
What do you like on a vacation you've been on? What were things that you really want to do? What are things that you don't? What are people that you're traveling with like? What are your significant other like? Like things like that. And then start there. And then that's what's really going to help you start to build out that itinerary now, but also long term for when you are starting to travel more and more. And you'll start to realize things that you may like, or it may be sitting on the beach, it may be exploring the city and learning different things. So love all the things that you said there. Definitely
Yeah.
relate.
It's interesting because I think if you think about when you go away on any kind of trip, you, we're there with our cameras, aren't we? And
Yeah. Oh
taking
yeah.
photos and videos, and we think it's not so bad for us because we're in the travel industry, so we know we're going to use them. We'll put them on Instagram and TikToks and things, and that's great. And we can show other people, but not everyone's the same boat. But so, what do they do with their pictures and their videos? And they've queued up for hours to see the Mona Lisa, and she's about that big, and they zoom in and they get a picture, and then I always think, yeah, and what are you going to do with that? um, is that really going to spark a bit of joy when you look at it? And are you ever going to look at it? Most of the time, you download them onto a computer and you never see them again. At least going back years when we used to actually print them out, you had you had a film in your camera and you had 24, 48 pictures. You had to pick and choose really what you wanted to take pictures of. And I think we're a bit more blasé. But the point is what are you going to remember? That's up there rather than having to have a picture to, because if you have to look at a picture to remember a trip, you probably didn't really experience that trip as much as you could have done. It's like they say, do you remember the 90s? Well, if you do, you weren't there. Well, it's kind of like if you've got pictures of things, or is it really gonna
Yeah.
say, "Oh my God, you remember that trip? It was amazing." And that was things like looking at sunsets. And I've got an amazing sunset on one of the beaches. Do you know, I can't remember which beach it was in Goa. I can't remember which one it was, but and all the hippies used to come down to the beach. As soon as it got dark, they just appear from nowhere. It's just like, where have all these people come from? And they would sit down, play guitars, and the whole thing, the whole experience was amazing. And I've got pictures with silhouettes of people and sitting on the beach, and that I can look at that picture, and it just takes me back there. But I don't really need the picture because it's kind of up here. But it does invoke some kind of emotion, and I think that's kind of what I want people to experience when I plan a trip for them. I want them to have those
Hmm.
moments. I mean, it might not happen all the time, but I want
Yeah.
them to have those moments when they just are never going to forget that for the right reasons, obviously.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they look at something and it's not necessarily the Grand Canyon or Machu Picchu or something like that, but it could be just something very simple that doesn't cost any money and it just happens to be one of the best things ever. And I think the reason I like to look at photos is purely for people to look back and remember people.
Hmm.
And so, oh, do you remember when we met so and so?
Yeah.
And nowadays it's so easy to keep in touch. So,
Yeah.
you know, with all this social media and that. So I think that's it's just really having that experience when you go somewhere.
Yeah.
And of course, slow travel is a good way to really be responsible from a kind of climate point of view because you can use local buses and trains and so you're kind of traveling slower but it's also a bit more sustainable but also you get to know a lot of things when
Hmm.
you use public transport. Sometimes it's like I'm not using that public
Yeah.
transport again. I've
Yeah.
been I'm not very good in small spaces and I've been stuck at the back of a minibus in Thailand
Same.
right in the
I'm,
corner and
yeah.
I'm like this. Oh, I don't like it. The windows don't open, you're all hot. But then I've been on an Indian train and the door open, sitting on the steps, just watching the world go by, and it's just amazing. And
Yeah.
it's about getting those experiences to the people and saying, not, you don't need to go hunting out all these kind of tourist attractions because there are so many other things that you can do that's more about what you feel rather than what you can see. I think
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
probably.
No,
What.
100%. I think you learn that just over the years of travel, right?
Mm,
It just goes back to
yeah.
like, what have you accumulated over those years? What have you learned? Like, what do you like? What do you not like? And just once you do it for a while, you're like, all right, if I'm going on vacation, I don't want to be crammed in a tourist trap spot where everyone's trying to get a picture. And right, you want to have those moments where you're riding right in a train through
Mm,
Thailand. And yeah, no, funny enough, I actually have a guest coming on next month who has a YouTube channel called Transit Unplugged, and he has
oh,
he
wow.
he so he's it's pretty cool. He is when he and I'm talking to him tomorrow actually just to start to kind of introduce ourselves, but he was talking about he feels like he's trying to be the Anthony Bourdain of public transportation, so he's going all over the world. So I'm interested because we've done
Yeah.
a good amount of public transportation, but I'm like you, like I'm a little bit bigger and get claustrophobic when you get in those type of situations. And
Mm,
right, like for me, it's about comfort, but a lot of the times it is cool, like taking the train if you're able to, or sometimes just other public transportation to learn that and learn how the locals live. So yeah, I couldn't agree more. I have to share that with you, and I'm excited to learn. Just that's an episode where I'll learn more about everywhere he's been, what to do, what to not. So yeah, very very cool. I think just transitioning. I mean, you mentioned two places. I know you when we were talking, you said those are two places I really want to talk about: India and Thailand, as well as Vietnam. So, would love just to hear, what would you say are some must see spots when people are going to those destinations?
I think it's difficult to name exact spots, but for me, Rajasthan was an amazing trip. I think it's easy to go down south. Within India, lots of people go to Kerala and Goa because it's nice beaches and it's sunny and it's kind of like a beach holiday. But in India, and I think sometimes it's people think, oh, if I go inland, it's kind of I'm not by a beach,
Yeah.
what am I gonna do? What am I gonna see? And and it's just it is exactly what I'm talking about. It's this experiential travel that really does open your eyes to some good, some bad things. But then you see when you see the bad things, that's where we can start being really good tourists, and we can start saying, well, I'm not going to do that now. One of the big things I'm working on at the moment with a company called Kiwano Tourism is about how we treat animals as tourists and about how we let people use animals for entertainment purposes when, we're on holiday and we go and see killer whales and dolphins and they're trapped in kind of small, and I'm not preaching to anyone, this is
Yeah.
my view. This is, and there is scientific evidence that they don't like it. Much better to go on a boat and see them in their natural habitat. There's nothing wrong with that. Same with elephants. So I'm kind of putting together now animal welfare policy from my point of view. All it means is I won't sell anyone anything that has that kind of animal attraction that isn't in their natural, environment or their habitat. So it's those kind of ways that we can say, no, I'm not going to go and do that. I'm going to do this instead.
Hmm.
And I think that's where we can really help the things that we don't like about. I mean, I'm sure you've been to places and you've you've quite been shocked
Mhm.
or upset. I mean, I was a few times I've been crying, and not necessarily because of any big issues that people can't help. It's just some of the things that for me they're upsetting, and I think it's nice when you can go away and say, right, I'm going to do something about this. And as in the UK, I'm not sure if it was. Um, whether it was done anywhere else in the world, but in the UK, we as travel consultants, travel agents, all signed a petition to get our travel tour operators to stop selling marine park tickets and things like that. And a lot of them have stopped selling it. Now, we can't stop people going, but we can educate them and we can
Mhm.
explain why it's, not a good thing and what they can do instead. And there are plenty of other things to do that actually help local communities because they have guides. For example, in Thailand, they have guides that look after elephants in living communities, and you can go and join in, and they get you to count the elephants, and you're not feeding them, you're not interfering with the way that they live, and it's so much more satisfying. But I think if some people just don't know about these
Y-
things.
s-
It's great to have that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's kind of funny and ironic you bring that up because yeah, we're going to Thailand here for our honeymoon, and a former guest that I
Oh
have
wow.
actually wrote in her blog like where 10 plate like a 10-day itinerary in Thailand, and we're going up to Chiang Mai, and that was one of the things that when I looked into was exactly what you just said. Like, how can we do this responsibly? And she, in her blog, actually stated, like, this, I did a bunch of research on this. This one is exactly what you were just saying.
I
So,
think
and
it's
that's,
called, there's one called Kindred.
I'll have to
Kindred
look.
Sanctuary. Yeah, that is a really good one that I know about. Because again, some of them are good, but they're
Hmm.
not quite there because they still let you bathe the elephants,
Hmm.
which I mean, I don't know if again, most people probably don't know that elephants don't really like the water.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
only use it in extreme temperatures to cool themselves down. So if you go out of season and it's cold, and you're
Hmm.
actually forcing them, it's like forcing someone to go into the North Sea in England, in December or
Yeah.
January when it's ice on the top of it. They
Yeah.
don't like it. But you kind of think, oh well, they're playing along, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they enjoy it. But yeah, Thailand's really learning, and they've got some amazing places now that you can go and really and again learn about the animals in their
Hmm.
habitat and learn the good stuff about them, and when we're not interfering at all. So
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, it's I
so
mean it's amazing work what you're doing, and that's that's why I like bringing different guests on, especially with different backgrounds, and this is helpful because when people start to travel they don't always focus on that, and that it's just there's so much that goes into it, and for a lot of times people see whatever's on social media, that's a hot spot, we want to go there, but when you start to go to
yeah.
these things and you start to travel more with time you realize it. But my goal is to just provide as much valuable information to people who are traveling. So when they do, they are conscious of those type of things when they are planning their own trips, when they are talking to a travel agent like yourself and they're thinking about those things, even for if they're using a different travel agent that they know who's just a referral, right? Asking those types of questions, I think is helpful, and it's going to just continue to help out the travel community, help out people, and just keep on educating them. So no, so many good points and a ton of valuable tips there. So I appreciate that.
Well, that's all we can do, really.
Yeah.
I was in Lisbon recently, and just seeing people queuing up. There's a Santa Justa lift. I don't know if
Yeah.
you've been on it,
we
seen it.
we we walked by it last year, and
Ah, no,
we had a friend who lived
what?
there, and they were like, "Don't go to that. It's a tourist trap." And we did not, and we walked right by, and I was like, we could walk. And I think we were talking about this. You can walk around.
We did, yeah.
Yeah.
By the time you've actually queued, well, actually quicker than the time that it takes to queue, you can walk up some side streets, which is more interesting,
Oh
and get
yeah.
to the top, and you're not paying any money for that. And okay, you could say, well, you're depriving someone of money, but you know, it's interesting because I was thinking earlier about when I went to Croatia and we had a day trip on a boat. We were staying in a place called Savtat, which was down the coast a bit. Lovely little village. But yeah, got the boat into Dubrovnik, And as soon as you get off the boat, there's a big square and there's lots of cafes, and people rush straight into, oh, we need a drink. Like, let's go to these first cafes. Well, they're loving it, ribbing their hands. And so I kind of looked at a menu, and it's £7 English equivalent for a coffee. That's about what,
Wow.
$8, $9, and a beer, just a local beer, £10. That's $12 for a beer, just a normal 500 milliliter beer.
Wow.
And but you only had to walk around the corner. It was half price.
Yeah.
So you go into the little bars that are owned, and not. I mean, this cafe looked really nice, but it's like me coming over to your town and going to Starbucks.
Yeah.
It's like, well,
It's
it's coffee, but even though the food in there is probably not made on the premises, whereas around the corner there's a beautiful bakery. They hand make all their food. It's really fresh coffee or a beer if you want it, wine, and it's all local and and they had an Irish bar as well, which
yeah.
obviously is the norm now, isn't it? You got
Yeah.
to find the Irish bar.
Yeah.
But even that wasn't expensive because it was run by a local person.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a chain, it wasn't a big
Yes.
brand. And I think, that's one of the things that we can do as tourists is seek out the kind of artisan shops, and when we're buying food or when we're buying souvenirs, we can just take a bit more time and find out that are locally made things rather than mass produced for tourists. And
Yeah, no,
you know
100%. And I think that's,
mm,
with my travel style and what I've done over the years, like we're on the same page where, I have people who like to go do all inclusives and book that and stay on the resort and eat, the food. But I personally think, and this is what I try to tell people and help people plan for. I think it's, over time, it's helping them plan their trip, but also it's going to make a larger impact on their life just on planning out things, schedule, time management, but also getting
mm,
those different experiences because those are then going to open your eyes to much more than, hey, we're going to fly down, do a 4 day all inclusive, drink, eat this, not the local food, not
mm-mm,
support the different,
mm-mm,
right, locally owned places because those are the type of experience that you remember over time, right? You remember if you went to that one bakery, oh my gosh, that was so good. Like that is what we try to do when we go to different places. And we were in Greece recently. It was like, okay, where can we go that's local? When we were in Milos, just driving around the island on a four-wheeler, trying to find those
mm-mm.
places. Portugal, same thing. I mean, that is the beauty of it. And you also get to a lot of the times those places if they aren't super busy, you can start. Usually, the owners of them are hanging in there working, and you get to talk to them. They're super nice. They're super happy you're there too. And I think for people who may feel like, oh well, they may not like us because we're tourists. Like a lot of times they're happy, and if you go in and you're supporting their business, there and you start to talk to them, they're gonna be happy that you're curious and you're supporting. So that's one thing we always try to do, and that's honestly one of our favorite parts of travel is trying the different food at those different types of restaurants because that's where you get the experience and then you get to talk
Exactly.
to the you get to talk to the locals and they can recommend places that like I like to plan out an itinerary but I like to leave a buffer so when we're at a place that is locally owned and is a top rated place that I've read online, I can ask the people there, hey, we're thinking about going to maybe here or here. What do you recommend? Or do you have other recommendations? And usually, if you've done your research, they'll say, no, that's a great place. Maybe try this if this is your vibe or your preference. So I think just asking those questions and being curious goes a long way, and it's going to amplify your experience because I just think of it like if I'm traveling to, let's just say LA, where I have friends who live there, like I can look online, but they've lived there for years
Mm.
where they can give me those recommendations. So thinking about it that way is really important. I think that's a good transition into what we were talking about. I know you have a ton, but just maybe there's one or two where you asked a local for a recommendation that led to just a completely different experience than you were expecting and something that you did that was unique.
Well, I'm not a massive lover of really spicy food. I do like curries and dals and stuff like, but don't like them spicy. I like them flavorful. And so India's always an interesting place because sometimes if their English isn't brilliant and you mention the word spicy, even though you say not spicy, they just hear the word spicy. So I've been caught out quite a few times, like way. And I, I went to Pushkar in that in Rajasthan, and the local Airbnb place we just stayed. It was beautiful. It's a really, really nice place and great host. And so he had knew everyone in the little village. It's not a massive place, and he knew loads of people. So he recommended some really good places. And we've met so many interesting characters. Um, but He was like teaching us how to what to order and what was what would be spicy, what wouldn't be spicy. But um, when we were in when we went to Jaipur, was the first time I really went to a very, very basic local restaurant, and I was a bit scared, to be fair. So going up these stairs into this unknown place, and yeah, it was just like plastic tables and chairs, and it was no, no frills. But then they brought the food out, and I was kind of saying, what should I try? And they said, oh, try this. Um, Dumaloo, I think it was Dumaloo, which was potato and yeah. Absolutely loved it. But I was too scared to say, is it spicy? So I just said, right, I'm just going to have it as it comes and just just hope for the best. And it's one of the best things I ever tried. And that was the guy that was at the guest house just down the road in Jaipur. That was he just said, yeah, just go down the road. And I'll tell you what they have there as well, because Jaipur's the pink city. And
Hmm.
they have the blocks. So you've got the massive contrast. You're going from the airport and you go past all these big shops, the Rolex shops and all these really, really fancy big branded shops. And then you get into the old town and through the gate and it's completely different. It's all these really, really old buildings in blocks. And they have these cake shops. I have no idea what they make them out of, but they are light as a feather, the sponge, and they have this gorgeous cream. I think it's all vegan because I think they of different religions. I think they purposely make it out of vegetable oils and things. Oh my goodness, absolutely gorgeous. Buy these little cakes and they're just stunning. And it wouldn't be something that people would think, oh, I can get this really nice cake when I go to India. Everyone's just thinking about curry and kulfi and stuff
Yeah.
like that. But yeah, and I got to try masala dosas for the first time. Oh, they're like, I don't know if you've had one, the big pancake, like a big pancake. They make them on a
Mm-mm.
big hot plate, and they're
Okay.
really, really thin, really, really thin. And then they fill it up with potatoes. It's the masala dosa. It's got potatoes and spices in, and then roll it up. Oh,
Make
stunning.
me hungry.
Absolutely. Oh, well, but yeah, it's so much. And like you say, absolutely would not, probably wouldn't try them, probably wouldn't even think about going into these small places. I mean, to be fair, as a blonde female, it is quite nerve-wracking because you do
Yeah.
get looked at
Yeah.
because you're different.
Yeah.
You're different, and so I think you kind of I try and prepare people for that and say, yeah, you will, and obviously part of responsible travel is making sure that you are aware of people and customs and religions, so you're
Hmm.
not,
Yeah. Yeah.
provoking anything. And there was nothing bad about it. It was just people looking and you think, but they're staring at me, but they're staring at me because I'm different,
Yeah.
because I don't look like everybody
Yeah.
else in the village. But then also a lot of people speak, I mean the kids are amazing. The
Yeah.
kids will run up to you and they're like touching my hair and talking to you and saying, where are you from? Where are you from? And they're great little kids, and that's yeah, I've had lots of really good experiences with little kids and
That's
how they come up to you and they're just so fascinated by talking to you.
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's great. I love that.
No,
And
I
then
mean, but
yeah.
I was gonna say, but again, it just goes back to like finding those, going outside your comfort zone and just
Mhm.
doing that. That's something that you can talk about and remember. If you went to, say, just somewhere that you sat on the beach, it was an all inclusive, and you had a meal, it's like, oh, we had breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Like it was the same pretty much thing. So it's like those type of experience we always talk
Yeah.
about. And that's the nice thing too is if you go there, I always have people come to me, not just from a travel business standpoint, but personally, friends like, hey, we went here. Do you recommend anything? And I can always go back and say, here were the top three things we did. I'm not going to say, hey, here's all the entire itinerary, do this, do that. Like I have different resources I can point them towards. But if a personal friend's like, hey, we're going here, what did you like? I'll say, make sure you do that, make sure you do that, and like make sure you eat here or eat at these two places because those are things that I remember the names, and those are memories that in the food, just the experience and just like the hospitality and local treatment was so great that I want to recommend that to others because they're going to enjoy it, but also like you're talking about, it's that responsible travel. You're promoting to the local community and you're just helping others enjoy an experience all around,
Yeah.
whether they're a traveler, whether they're a host, and everything. So
And
we're
I
just kind
think,
of,
yeah, there's other things that you can do. So like eating is one thing, but I think I always find it's useful to learn a few little phrases in the
Mhm,
language where you're going. Just even just a couple of things. If you're not brilliant at languages and they don't stick, just learn a few things. Even if you can say hello and thank you and goodbye. It's amazing how much difference it makes. And nine times out of ten, people won't talk back to you in their language because they want to practice their English.
mhm.
So you're practicing your, Portuguese, and they're saying, "Well, I want to speak back in English." So you're kind of having this odd conversation of
Yeah.
half of each. But I notice you do get the treatment is better
Mhm.
if you can, and sometimes you get it wrong and they laugh at you
Yeah.
and then I'll actually teach you how to do it and teach you how to say it right.
But they,
But so but I think we were talking about like what would you recommend? So I would obviously recommend eat where the locals eat, definitely. Eat and also try new things, even if you just try it once and you don't like it. Chances are it'll be so cheap that you won't even have to worry about, the fact, oh, I've just bought a meal and you give it to someone. So give it to someone in the street that's hungry if you don't want it. So and learn a few basic languages and things. But also it's probably the places as well, the experiences that people can have. Like I would say go to India during Holi.
mhm,
And it's just so much fun. Um and Songkran in Thailand, the water festival
mhm.
when and we you just get soaked. It's great. It sounds silly, doesn't it? You're walking down the street, people are putting buckets of water over your head, and even the fire brigade come round spraying the hose, and you spraying, and it's just. But it sounds weird, but it's just so much fun. You
Yeah. I
have
mean,
just
those
a
are different
great
experience.
time, but obviously different times a year. But we can advise, and some people might want to stay away from that. So it's useful
Mhm.
to for people to know what's going on. If they don't like animal cruelty and there's a bullfight, well, they don't really do
Yeah.
them that much, but the bull racing,
Yeah.
or something to do like that. And you can say to people, oh, don't go there during that season because
Mhm.
it won't be your cup of tea, or it'll be really busy. So don't try and do that. Um, but I think it's just it's just having that. And I said, yeah, we've both talked about things that we've done. We haven't had to look at our phones to get memories and pictures
Yeah.
because it's all up here, and
Yep.
it's about leaving people with those things that you can talk about, and and
Exactly.
and you
And
get
like,
still get excited about it even when it
yes,
might be
no, one,
5 years ago. Yeah.
yeah, 100%. And I mean, you and I both obviously in the travel business, we take pictures that help our business. And
Yeah.
if we go somewhere cool, obviously I want to get a picture with my group of friends or fiance, but I'm not, I'll just give you an example of something funny. When we were in Greece, like we went to Santorini, we had to do it. We hadn't been, but we
Mm.
stayed right where like everyone with the blue dresses wanted to take pictures. So it was just phones out, just hanging out right next to our porch. It was just like, oh my gosh, this is what everyone said. Like it's beautiful, but everyone is like, I have to get that perfect picture. I have to do that. Like I have to go to Ia to get the sunset picture. That's great. And we were like,
Why?
we got a great place where the sunset is just as good. We can look, take a picture, watch it, enjoy a glass of wine, enjoy a beer, enjoy ourselves. And like you said, 5 years later, like some of the trips that I had planned for our group of guy friends, we were in our 20s when we came over to Europe and just did different cities. Like some of them had never been abroad, and that was just like eye opening from the experience they got. That's still just to this day, we talk every time we get together, we talk about it. We'll just we just have so many funny inside jokes and memories of remember we did that, remember we did that, like, oh, I wish I could do that. That's my favorite trip I've ever. So it's just like those things. And I was just I had some people who I've traveled with over the years who I've planned all our trips just do testimonials, and like reading through some of those surveys like brought joy to my face, and just I was laughing because some of those are some of the best memories, and they were like texting me when this was going down memory lane, like, can we go on a trip again? So it's just like little things like that that you remember. We didn't have to send any
Mm.
pictures. It was just those are the type of memories that people love to make and create. And I think doing things responsibly and giving them that guidance, like you were saying, is key. Which also I know we talked about. I know we've touched on the subject of like, you know, giving back to the community, giving back to the locals. But we were talking about, and this is one of my favorite things to do, is booking unique accommodations. So I like
Yeah.
to stay in Airbnbs, just places that are like you get a great view, you get right, you just get and for groups, obviously, when planning those, you have to get a bigger one, so it's fun. But even for like my fiance and I are a smaller group, getting that just unique experience where you get just you just enjoy it, right? It's not like, okay, we're going to stay at the hotel and that's that. Which sometimes we like to do with points and miles. And if it's a free stay, I'm not going to turn that down. But right, unique experiences. I know you talked about, the guest house in India. When we talked earlier, you had talked about houseboats in Lisbon. Like, are there others that come to mind? And then just how do these types of stays really enhance your experience, and why do you recommend them for your clients?
I think it's all about remembering the reason why you're going traveling. Why are you there? Now, I know we probably have more luxury of traveling more than most people because it's our job.
Yeah.
But a lot of people that we plan holidays for maybe only have a week, 2 weeks, so they've got to kind of make the most of it. So what do they want out of that trip? And now if it's all about the hotel, then that's what they want. But I find that most people are happy with um, a standard of accommodation that might not be top, 5 star, because they don't actually they just need somewhere to sleep and get changed, and because it's about what they're going to
Hmm.
do, it's somewhere to rest your head. So now I've had a lot of places where I've stayed that I wouldn't recommend
Yeah.
for various reasons, especially around India. And it's an experience. And do you know
Hmm.
what? I kind of think I wish people would stay in those places, but I'm not going to sell them those places. I'm not going to book that for them because it would be definitely like a down. But I think it really opens your eyes, and I think you get a little bit more. Um, what's the word? More accommodating,
Hmm.
because you think, I know what I've stayed in the past, so I don't need a 5 star. I just need something in between, something that isn't terrible, with no air conditioning in 40-degree heat and mosquitoes everywhere, and um, but I don't need to stay at this kind of top level 5 star hotel that's got everything that I'm never going to use because
Hmm.
I'm not going to be in the hotel as long as I get up, I have my breakfast, and I'm out, and we're out for the day, and come back, get changed, and go out for dinner, and it kind of feels like a bit of a waste.
Hmm.
So I I tend to work with a lot of my suppliers that will book local boutique style hotels in various countries all over the world, rather than the
Hmm.
big hotels. Saying that though, that I've also got a lot of a supplier who looks after Mauritius, and they look after, and there's not that many hotels in Mauritius, so they pretty much look after all of them. But they're all family run. So even though they're bigger, you still get that personal service, and every penny you spend goes back to the people
Hmm.
that work there are all local. The families are all local. They use local farmers and local people for all the food. Any tours and things that you go on while you're there are all run by local
Hmm.
people. So I think somewhere like that is a really good example of where actually you can accommodate. And you know what? It actually works out cheaper to go there than it does to go to a lot of the big all-inclusive hotels in
Hmm.
Europe. A lot of people think Mauritius, oh, it's going to be expensive, and it's not. And because you're getting this real proper experience as well. It's not about the hotels are amazing and they really look after you, but it's not really about the hotel. It's about what you get when you go, and they get you out, and because they've got lots of things that you can go and do and explore. So it's difficult because I've got clients that would only stay in at better hotels, but they still don't use them. They still
Yeah.
just use them as a base, but
It's
that's just what they want. Um, I think you find people, if people went backpacking when they were younger or a little bit older, they are less fussy about accommodation, you
we
know. Yeah, 'cause,
But it's true. It's very
mm,
true because like I studied abroad when we were earlier in our 20s when we didn't have, much money. We were staying and we were like, hey, let's stay in hostels. When you were planning group trips and you
mm,
had to plan around different people's budgets, right? You picked, okay, and here these areas, we're going to stay in, higher ranked hostels that might be a little nicer, but we're going to have to stay in hostels and like it opens people's eyes to
mm.
hostels aren't everyone takes it as a hostel from at least in the US, right? Like they aren't as familiar who haven't traveled. So we enjoyed that. You don't have to stay in, right, the 5-star Ritz-Carlton wherever you go. You can find a good 3, 4-star, very affordable place to stay in. Like we've done Airbnbs a lot, but I love, like you had just mentioned, boutique hotels. For example, when we go on our honeymoon, we have a good amount of points, so we are going to use those at some places. But when we are not, like, we're excited because we're looking at some of these boutique hotels, and it's just a different style. And a lot of the times, like, that you're going to give back and support, and it's yeah, we're very excited for that. And
Yeah. The-
and oh, I was just going to say, but I
uh,
think it is just, I think for most people it's just it is a landing base, and you're going to realize once you get there, unless you're going to like a beach vacation or hey, we're on our honeymoon, we want 3 or 4 days where we just chill by the pool and that's what we want, like that's totally fine. But if
yeah.
it's just we want to stay in the center of a city and we want to be able to bounce around, like it truly is just a place to lay your head, get ready, maybe grab breakfast, and it's all about location, location, location.
Yeah. And also, it's knowing a little bit more about the accommodations, because you can book an Airbnb, and for example, London, and it's not owned by a person.
Mhm.
It's a big company
Yeah.
that own, and we're getting a lot of problems in the UK with that. People buying big chunks of apartments and houses and things, putting them on Airbnb, which means there's less places for people to live. So
Hmm.
I think if you're working with a professional like yourself or coming to myself, we can actually show you that you can have a kind of same as an Airbnb, but you're
Hmm.
just booking it with, people that actually own the
Yeah.
properties and benefit from it. A lot of people that I work with have actually stayed in the accommodations, or they actually know the people that run the accommodation, which again,
That's
you
awesome.
know you know you're getting somewhere. And also it's nice to have that little bit of backup, that if you get there and it's not for you, that or there is something has gone wrong, that you will have somewhere to come back to. I think somewhere those big companies like Airbnb, Booking.com, sometimes you don't get that
Yeah.
customer support,
Oh yeah,
always.
100%.
We've stayed in lots of
Yeah.
different ones, and some are great and some haven't been so great. And the ones where you actually homestays, I always like those. We've met some amazing people through homestay. So
Yeah.
you actually meet the people and we do Airbnb here because we're in a seaside town, so
Hmm.
we rent our spare room out,
That's
and we've
awesome.
met some amazing people, and they've people that have come to Cornwall for the first time. So, and we can act as their guide. Then we can say, yeah, go and eat there, and go and eat at these places,
Yeah.
and you must visit this. And it's nice giving people those recommendations.
Yeah,
But
it's I was going to say, I mean, that's something that when we've gone, we've stayed in either just a private room, and then you can get those local recommendations from your host and they can help, and then they're there to help. So that's a great point. I do want to so I want to transition because this is
mm,
something that I hear from my friends. I've had a couple episodes around solo travel. I have a couple more. It's always good to get different perspectives, but I know you were talking about solo travel. then, transitioning into traveling as a couple. And I think I laugh because a lot of my friends and just others, they got the benefit from me planning all the group trips, them going on, and then, now as we're getting older, usually my priority is it's either a smaller group trip or it's me and my fiance traveling. So they don't get the benefit from that. So now they're like, how do I plan this for my girlfriend, fiance, wife? And I'm starting to see they travel a lot less. So trying to help give tips and tricks. And I have a webinar November 13th and 14th just on like how to plan the perfect surprise trip, just because that's something I like to do every year for Christmas or birthdays, just experiences over materialistic things. But it would be good to hear kind of how that progression, I know we talked about it in our call, like how that progression happened from solo to then couple and planning those. You don't have to share all the personal details if they're right, if it's, but just high level, because I feel like a lot of people do want to learn, like, okay, how do I accommodate for this? What are best practices? And would love to hear your perspective.
It's really interesting. I was really, really lucky because a lot of my travel um, experiences have come from meeting my partner,
Um,
um, because he had just come back from traveling when I met him, and I'd just been made redundant from a corporate job, and I just sat for our first date. I literally just sat listening to him. Not that he was hogging the conversation. I just kept asking him questions about this travel because I was so fascinated because he'd been to India and Thailand, and that was the one places that I just didn't have the courage to go. I was great going round Europe. I probably even would have come over to the States because it's kind of like I can read things. Whereas I go to India or Thailand, I can't read anything. I was getting kind of nervous that you know, I would be out of my comfort zone too much. But he'd just come back, so it was great to learn from him. And I think the first thing people need to do when they are getting to that stage where they're going to go traveling with someone is literally just find out what kind of travels they've already been on, because the fact that James said it was telling me about India and Thailand and all the other places that he's been, but those two particular places, it was what got me traveling again to
mhm.
to kind of outside of my comfort zone because I knew I'd got someone that was well versed in that. Didn't say we didn't have yeah, we didn't have some strange experiences, but we both got each other, and I think once you start traveling, then you know whether you're suited because it's a
Exactly.
being together, and you're together all the time. It's not like
Yeah.
you can disappear into your office or your bedroom or and get away from someone. You're there, aren't you, all together? So I think, yeah, first of all, it's fine. Just talk about just about holidays. What do you like? What do you like to do on holiday? What don't you like to do? Because especially if it's a guy planning for a girl, I think that must be more difficult because not a lot of men are like, yeah, just go with the flow.
Yeah.
But I think if you get it wrong, I think if someone plan, I do. We have a program in the UK called "Don't Tell the Bride,"
Yeah.
and the groom gets to plan everything from the dress,
Oh, that's
bridesmaid,
funny.
venue, and sometimes it's yeah.
Oh, I can
Sometimes,
imagine.
oh my God,
That
I
is
think they
so.
probably don't even last past the honeymoon, yeah,
You have to
because
send me you have to send me that because we're finishing up planning our wedding and like I mean I love to plan, right? Like this is I mean it's
mm,
second nature. I just look at everything as process oriented. So we've just been running through and everyone's like, how's the wedding planning going? And I'm like, oh, it's easy. It's just like planning a trip. It's not too bad. We just communicate, have a plan, just to have everything organized. But when I started talking to vendors at the beginning, I had questions that I had, obviously being in sales, that's just second nature, but had a bunch of questions, processes, next steps. Okay. And they're like, wow. At the end, they're like, you know a lot more than 99% of grooms that come to us. And I'm thinking, I'm like, you're probably right. So, like, that then sparked the idea of this webinar, just of like, if you do want to plan, and I have an assistant who was his personal life coach, and she was like, I have so many men, middle-aged men, who don't even know how to book a flight.
mm.
And I'm just like, okay, well, I'm happy to coach and teach the masses, but you have to send me that, the don't tell the bride. That is hilarious. I
it's
want to plug
it's
that to my
yeah.
listeners, and I want to watch it and send it to my fiance. That's
Yeah,
hilarious.
it sometimes it goes right, but and I always think the thing that's missing, especially when they get the dress wrong, and I think, but surely you had a conversation before. I mean, they know that they're going on the program. I'm sure they'd probably apply
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
have to wait to be picked, but they've applied. So do they not have that conversation saying, right, okay, if we get on the show, what kind of dress do you want?
Yeah.
What kind of, what kind of wedding do you want? And it's the same with the holiday. If I was planning a holiday, where would you want to go? What do you
Hmm.
like? What don't you like? It's okay. It depends on how long you've been together as well, doesn't it? So, and what your likes and dislikes. But, um, I kind of let James take me out of my comfort zone. So, you know, he didn't he didn't really have to make that decision. I said, no, I want to go. I want
Yeah.
to go because we didn't, it wasn't like we'd got everything planned, like you say, down to the nth degree. And if I'd have wanted to come home, we could have come home, or we could have gone to Europe instead. But I loved it and it was great. And even through all the sicknesses and odd things that happened, I still wanted to be there and I still just chalked it up to experience
Yeah.
um and again, yeah, it depends where you go and it depends what kind of experiences you've had in the past.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
and I think, like I was talking to someone not long ago about solo trips for women because that's something that I kind of specialize in as well. And you're saying that how would you go about doing that? And I said,
Hmm.
well, you've got to get to know the person because um, what you like, they might not, but also they might not want to take a big leap. So your first couples trip might not be
Yeah.
around the world trip, but
Yep.
in 120 days.
Yeah.
It might just be a short trip, and in the States, it might just be going if you live
Test.
in,
Yeah.
in going to Florida if you live
Yeah.
if you live in the north. It might just be that, or popping over to Europe again. A couple of hours on a plane or something. So it might just be baby steps. It might just say like, let's do a short break, or let's kind of see what's out there and
Yeah.
um
Test.
and again focusing on that experience because any woman will forgive a man for a bit of a not so nice hotel
Yeah.
if the experience that they get when they're there. So
Yeah.
there's some nice romantic dinners and beautiful walks and things like
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
it kind of a little bit of it can slide.
Yeah. No, for
Yeah.
sure. No, and and I think that's important. And yeah, just at least trying, I think is the biggest thing, but
Yeah.
testing the waters. Not you don't need to fly to Australia from the US for on your first trip, right? Test the waters, maybe just do a weekend trip because you learn a
Yeah,
lot about someone when you start to travel with them.
you do.
Thankfully, my travel companion's great. But just from group trips with friends, you just have to know, okay, is this person going to be on time? Are they going to cause issues around this? Do we just, there's just little things that you're like, okay, you have to, and that's when you do start to learn a lot about people. So definitely testing the waters. But yeah, I think it's just, if you go out and you try to do it, no one's gonna be like, oh, wow. And I've done it before where online, you think something looks great, you read good reviews, you get to the hotel or you get to the Airbnb and it's not as great as you
Mhm.
wanted it to be, but that's okay because you're like, cool, we're putting our stuff down. Bed might be small. We're here for 1 or 2 nights, and we're gonna go just be out and about and enjoy it. It honestly just gives you an excuse to get out and enjoy where you're at versus like, oh, maybe we should just hang out in this awesome hotel. So I
Mhm.
couldn't agree more. I got one more question for you. So,
Mhm.
as a travel expert, as a travel advisor, agent, how are you really, you talked about this a good amount, but I just want to, make sure, you can help others understand how you could potentially help them, right? How are you helping them create the perfectly well balanced itinerary and experience?
Yeah, we kind of have touched on this a little bit, isn't it? It's about looking at what people want, and I always just to drop a bit of Stephen Covey in there. One of the habits of 7 habits is start with the end in mind, and it's about saying to them, what when you come away from that trip, how do you want to feel? What what experience do you want to come away with? Yeah, again, if people come to me and say, I just want to sit on the beach for a week because I'm so busy and stressed at work, great, fine. I know what I'm dealing with. But if someone says, well, you know what, I've not experienced this, or I really want to do some snorkeling, or
Hmm.
you know, I want to swim with the pigs in the Bahamas. Whatever their kind of goal is at the end of it, we can work backwards from there. How long have they got? What's their budget like?
Hmm.
How adventurous are they? You know, if you, especially if you know them, if they're a current customer, because there are some things you'll say, no, don't go there. You won't like
Hmm.
it.
Yeah.
And you can save them a lot of heartache, even if it's kind of something they had their mindset on. Or you could suggest alternatives. You know, that's a good thing. We've got a lot of access to a lot of trips. And again, I don't think people realize that. They say, well, I can just do it myself. And you say, but what they don't understand is that probably over 60% of trips that are available are not online.
Hmm.
They are exclusive. Um, and for example, I'm just trialing something with the suppliers that I've got, um, where we are we're looking at just how we deliver the quotes to people.
Hmm.
So usually, you know, people you email them and they take that quote and they go and see if they can find it cheaper. But we kind of taking that hassle away from them. I'm not
Hmm.
saying that they won't still do it. I'm not saying that we're hiding anything because I'm quite happy if they've seen another trip that they
Hmm.
like, that they can come with me and say, look, I've seen this. And it's not about matching it. It's not about making it cheaper.
Yeah.
That's not what we do. It's about enhancing that experience and saying,
Hmm.
yes, you can do that, or you could do this. And you're adding value on. Okay, there might be a little bit of a difference in cost, but it's about adding that value on and saying, um, but wouldn't you rather get to the airport when you've landed and just have a private car waiting to take you
Yes.
straight to your accommodation? Or do you want to get on a coach full of another 100 people and you have to wait for another? I mean, I've done that before. You land in Tenerife and then they say, well, we just got to wait 40 minutes for the Manchester plane to land and then we can go. And you're like, I could have walked there in 40
Yeah.
minutes.
No, yeah.
You know, and it's like those little okay, like you say, there might be a little cost involved. As a travel professional, you may be able to build it in with that cost, but it's about saying, I've got access to things that you haven't, exclusive things.
Yeah.
So we've got this new quotes planner that adds suggestions in for people and saying, but you can have that trip, but you can have this trip. And they
Yeah.
look at the difference and go, oh, okay, so I can have this. And it's a bit more, it's just got a little bit more to it. There might be a couple of trips already included,
Yeah.
um, experiences like cooking classes and
Yeah.
art classes, walking, cycling, whatever they want to do, you know. And it's
Yes.
about that. What do you want to come away with? And then I would kind of work backwards from there, really. And so
Yeah.
if you are going, anyone that's listening, if you are going to see a travel professional, just go armed with a kind of, this is what I want my holiday to look like when I'm there. You know, imagine you're waking up on the first day of your holiday. Where
Yeah.
are you? What does it look
And
like? What
and
can you say? You know, and that kind of thing.
yeah, and I love what you said, start with the end in mind. Like that's the
Mm,
biggest thing is don't just run straight to, oh, I saw this popular place. Like think about your personal experiences. What do you want? What is your budget? What do you like about travel? What don't you like? What does your partner like? What don't they like? Do you want that relaxing lay on the beach? Do you want to be in a
mm,
city? Are you a patient or impatient person, right? When you get off a plane after traveling all night, do you want to have to sit there and wait for an Uber that, and another thing too is make sure, right, when you're traveling, do you want to bring like a carry-on or check bag? Because if you bring a check bag, you might not have as much flexibility. It's going to be harder to get to places. It's going to be right. So like
yeah.
those things, you might have to get a different type of car. The Uber may. So there's just like so many
Mm,
different things where it's think about those things of when you get off that flight. Like I love what you said. Having a private transfer already scheduled is you get there, boom, yes, you're getting
mm,
another vehicle, but you're not waiting there playing the guessing game, getting in a long line. So
mm.
I love what you left us there with Samantha, and I really appreciate you coming on the show. This has been awesome to talk to you.
Yeah, brilliant.
I'm glad I got to laugh. You got to share with me the "Don't Tell the Bride." That's hysterical. And
Yeah.
before we drop, where can our listeners find you on social, website, anything else you got going on?
Yeah, I'm pretty much on all of them. Yeah, I've ventured into TikTok as well, which is
Oh, let's go.
quite interesting. Yeah, so Samantha Green, not just travel.
Okay.
Yeah, not just travel is the kind of brand name, called because we don't just focus on travel. It's we do the whole thing. So, all those things that I talked about, we can add on for you, um, under one reference number and me. So it's kind of that they can pick up the phone or
Yep.
WhatsApp. But yeah, Samantha Green, not just travel.co.uk as well. That's a blog site. So you can read lots of little blogs about travels and actually a funny India story on there, from James. He did a
Okay.
guest blog for me, on a trip that didn't quite go to plan and was quite frightening at times, but turned out okay in the end. So
Yeah.
that's quite a really good funny story. Yeah,
Okay. And
that is
those
a
are
funny.
good for
This
lessons learned of what
yeah,
could
yeah.
go wrong and what to take away. And for our listeners, I'll make sure to link in her website as well as social media handles so you can go follow her if you need any resources, or just want to start to learn more about traveling, responsible travel, and anything we talked about on here. Give her a follow because she's been great. And I can tell you not only from this episode, just from our engagement prior to the episode, I learned a ton, and it's been great talking to you, Samantha, and I appreciate you coming on the show. Hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you very much. It's great
All
to be
right.
here.
All right. We'll see you. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to give us a rating and review so we can reach more people who are trying to travel. Also, make sure you give us a follow and hit the subscribe button. That way, you're not missing out on any of the upcoming episodes that come out every Wednesday. If you want to sign up for any of the exclusive credit card sign up bonuses that we mentioned, we'll link those within the show notes. And then that way you can get started on your points and miles travel hacking journey quicker. Tune in to next week's episode. Peace.